Children and children's toys have often found their place in modern horror movies, books, and media. Whether it be an unsettling face made of porcelain, or a disturbing cloth-made clown doll, even an infamous horror icon like the living doll Chucky can instill fear in the hearts of many. Dolls have a long history of creeping into some of our deepest fears. Tonight's countdown: 5 creepy urban legends about dolls. The Okiku doll is a small, kimono-clad doll that's named after the girl who once played with it. Legend has it that the doll is possessed by the spirit of a girl. Some have even claimed that the doll's hair continues to grow whenever it is cut. A scientific examination of the hair was supposedly conducted, and it was concluded that the doll's hair is that of a young girl. As of yet, nobody has ever been able to explain the doll's unnatural hair growth, which supposedly continues to this day. A rich teenage girl was walking through a department store with her mother and saw a beautiful porcelain doll, which would look great in her collection. She asked her mother to buy it for her, which she did. As soon as the girl got home, she unpacked the doll and set it up on a stand above her bed. She then left her bedroom and went out with her friends. When she got home, it was late, and she was very tired and went to her bedroom to put on her pajamas and go to bed. When she woke up the next morning, she found a note from her mother, telling her that they'd be out of town until next Sunday. She stretched and yawned, noticing that her cheek was sore, but she didn't pay much attention to it. She later went to school. The pain went on for a few days until she woke up and her cheek was extremely sore. She went over to the mirror and noticed a huge lump on her cheek. Thinking that it was just a normal blemish, she squeezed it and felt something moving. Suddenly, spiders began pulling themselves out of the lump on her cheek. She screamed, but there was no one home. She tried to kill the spiders, but there were thousands of them. She died from the poison that was contained in their bites. Apparently, a nest of spiders had found its home inside the porcelain doll that she had gotten from the department store. Years ago in Moundsville, West Virginia, a woman had a grade school friend named Emily, and the two spent a lot of time at Emily's home. The entire house had a strange feeling to it, but it was the attic that was the most unnerving. She said, the attic was finished, but had that death smell to it, like an abandoned building. It was always cold, despite the hot air that would rise from the floors below. The attic contained 4 small rooms, and one room was entirely devoted to dolls, which I always found terrifying. One afternoon, the girls played with a few of the dolls until Emily's grandmother called them to lunch. They placed the rag dolls back on the shelf, but one tumbled off just as they were about to leave. This was strange, as the doll fell in a way that seemed physically impossible. Puzzled, the woman returned the doll to its shelf and went downstairs to eat. Unfortunately for her, this wasn't the end of the encounter. She continued by saying, later on that day, Emily and I were playing in the woods adjacent to her house. I squatted down to pick up a pretty stone. When I went down, I felt something poking me from my pocket. I put my hand in the pocket and found 2 doll eyes. The eyes from the doll I had picked up earlier that day. Needless to say, I've been terrified of dolls ever since. Recently, a woman in Galveston, Texas, bought a real haunted New Orleans zombie voodoo doll. She bought it on eBay late October of 2004. It arrived as described, bound and tied in a metal box. Believing it just to be a strange curio, she decided to take it out of its small coffin and display it. She says herself that it was a really big mistake. The haunted doll supposedly attacked her repeatedly. Afraid for her life, she put it back in its decorated box, but it's haunted her even into her dreams. Afraid to the point of mental exhaustion, She tried to destroy it by burning it, but the doll would not burn. She then tried to dispose of it by cutting it up into pieces. When attempting to do so, both the knives and the scissors broke. Finally, she resorted to burying it at a cemetery. But apparently, the doll's grave was just too shallow, and it appeared lying on her front doorstep the next morning, covered in dirt. She even resold it on eBay, and the buyer wrote her telling her that the doll had just disappeared from his home. So, she sent it back to him when she found it on her doorstep yet again. The third time, the buyer told her that the box arrived empty, and once again, the woman found the doll on her doorstep once more. When it comes to haunted dolls, Robert is arguably America's most famous. The Key West doll is a fixture on local ghost tours and even served as an inspiration for Chucky and Child's Play. Robert belonged to the Key West painter and author Robert Eugene Otto. In 1906, a Bahamian maid reportedly gave the doll to Robert and then cursed the toy after Robert's parents displeased her. Soon after the maid's departure, strange events began plaguing the Otto household. Young Robert enjoyed talking to his namesake, and the servants insisted that the doll talked back. They also claimed the plaything could change its expressions at will and move about the house of its own accord. Neighbors reportedly saw the doll move from window to window when the family was away, and members of the Otto household heard maniacal laughing emanating from the toy. Robert the doll spooked plenty of folks during the day, but at night, he focused on young Robert. The boy would wake in the middle of the night, screaming in fear, as the heavy furniture in his room crashed to the floor. When his parents demanded to know what happened, Otto's response was always the same. Robert did it. It was Robert. Robert Otto died in 1974, and his notorious doll now sits on display at the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West. Legend has it that the doll will curse anyone who takes a photo without permission, which Robert grants by slightly tilting his head. Visitors who forget can always beg for forgiveness, which is what cameramen from the Travel Channel did after their HD camera mysteriously stopped working. And there you have it. If you didn't already hate dolls, this list may give you a few reasons to start. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join me next week on another episode of MissLovely's Legends and Lore.